These switches have similarities, like all of them, they ensure interoperability. That's natural. They work when you go through their websites and they talk to them, they're all in financial inclusion. They are obviously they process real-time transactions, all of them cards and mobile, and they support international payment mainly on cards. And all the three were a part of public and private partnership at some time. Others are still on that. So today we focus on the role of IIPS as they play their role as national utilities, like it was said before, for a digital utility as we take airports, roads, or other national utilities, which are becoming key for countries as we are being more and more digital connected. So they play a more pivotal roles in their countries. My first question goes to Gertrude. Please introduce yourself, NatSwitch, and its role in Malawian ecosystem.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share with you experiences at the National Switch in Malawi. The National Switch was established in 2014. It went live in 2015. It is an all-inclusive national switch, and when we're talking about all-inclusive, we're not just talking about interoperability of a specific transaction types. The national switch is, in terms of participation, it is open to all payment service providers, be it commercial banks as well as non-bank financial institutions or payment service providers. Currently, the National Switch has integrated all the commercial banks, the mobile money operators. We do have fintechs, as well as microfinancing institutions and savings and credit cooperatives on the National Switch. Now, talking about the role of the role that National Switch plays in the Malawian economy. I'm just going to give you some background information as to where we're coming from. So the National Switch, at the time when it was being implemented, we were coming from a period when in the Malawian economy, we started having non-banks players in the country. And then at the same time, the government, through the Ministry of Finance and working with the Central Bank, Reserve Bank of Malawi, we're also working on some frameworks on financial inclusion as well as digitization of payments. And now one element that was identified as lacking in the economy was a digital foundation infrastructure that will support not only interoperability, but bring both the commercial banks and the non-banks for interoperability as well as adoption of digital payments in the country. So when you look at it in terms of digitization of payments, national switches play a role of instant payments or fast payments. And that is almost can work as a replacement of cash, because then you don't have settlement windows. Transactions for the payer and the payee happen in an instantaneous manner. And then the third element in terms of driving financial inclusion, then as a country, we sat down and looked at how do we ensure that there's fast movement of money in the economy, looking at the fact that the incumbent players in the financial industry were mainly commercial banks. And then there was huge reliance on brick and mortar kind of setups in order for them to offer financial services to the masses. And they were concentrated in urban areas. They had no existence in the semi as well as the rural areas, later along the most remote areas of the country. So there was a drive to digitize, not only digitize payments, but also to make sure that we make them inclusive and as well as interoperable, so that the masses, including those that were in the rural areas and remote areas, could also have access And this is at the point where mobile money was also introduced. So this is where we're coming from. So the role that the national switch plays, not only interoperability, but also to bring together different payment service providers to work together, collaborate, co-create, as well as innovate. And that has seen the bringing in of new payment service providers to also provide digital financial services in the country. So that is driving innovation. The second is inclusiveness, making sure that financial services are not only accessible by those that are in urban areas, but we're reaching out to all the citizens of Malawi. So accessibility and convenience is one area that National Switch is playing in the economy. The third element is where we're talking about protecting consumer data, because then this is a domestic switch, meaning that clearing as well as settlement is taking place in the country. So we're protecting and is aligned to the country's laws on consumer protection as well as data protection. And the other element that this is still, it's always going to be an ongoing thing, is to do with cost of delivering these services to the citizens of the country, the consumers themselves. So the idea is, since we are offering a digital shared platform to all the payment service providers in the country, we would want to continue to see fees that are associated with access to those services going down. I'm saying that we want to continue to see this happening, because it can never be a one-off. National switches it's a game of volumes. So as we see the volumes going up, what we want to see in the country is the drive on affordable and lower fees, so that the adoption of digital payments continues to go up as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. Mr. Samba, how is it with Gambia?
Okay, thank you very much. With regard to Gambia, GamSwitch was set up in 2011, and then we went live in 2013. We started as a private and government collaboration. And recently, when central bank and the government saw how important the national switch is, they persuaded the private sector to sell out. So at the moment, GamSwitch is 100% central bank owned. Right. So in terms of what we have done since, is that we have achieved 100% interbank interoperability and also account-to-account transfer. We have also achieved that. See, so we have, during the pandemic, the COVID-19, it was a bad news for everybody. But I think for switches, not only for GamSwitch, I think, but worldwide, we see a big rise in transactions happening there. And for GamSwitch, it was no different. We saw transaction rise up sharply during those years, and it has stayed there, not coming down even after post-COVID. I really think we are going to expand on that as we expand on the services and use cases that we have introduced. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think you're doing well. For other switches after the COVID, transaction volumes went back down. You're doing very well to keep it up to that level. Jean-Jacques, after presenting our switch, could you also explain how our switch has scaled its IIPS to support the country's Vision 2050 for financial inclusion?
Thank you. Thank you, Olivier. Thanks for having me to sit in this panel to talk about a topic which I'm really passionate about. I work for our switch. Our switch is the Rwanda national switch. I think this is the only switch we have in country. it gives us the leverage of not having a competitor into the switch space. Our switch was established in 2003. So if you count, this is 20 years that we are in the market. But when the switch started, it was really major focused on the card, established interconnectivity between financial institutions and enable card payment to transact at any ATM, any POS, without thinking where your account is sitting. And that has really been, for many years, the core business for the switch, our switch in Rwanda, processing, and we also have our scheme, a national scheme, our own card, basically to respond to the need of the local consumer or local customers. That was for over 15 years. Fast forward, sometimes 2015, there was a need to really push faster financial inclusion. There was a need to reduce as much as possible the cost of transactions. And this push for urgency to have interoperability in the country, because we had been for many years relying on a closed loop system and many closed loop with bilateral existing. And again, these bilateral were driven by financial institutions, banks, and mobile money operators. But again, financial institutions implement it at a cost, and that cost is usually passed to the consumers. And it makes access to financial services very expensive. And again, it pushed back consumers to rely on physical cash. So the strategy was, how do we go about it? Reducing cash circulation in the market. What do we need to put? Because for you to address financial inclusion, you need to tackle the entire value chain, because technology is not enough. So 2015, 2016, the government of Rwanda with the Ministry of Economic and Finance under the umbrella of the central bank, our switch was mandated to implement a project called Rwanda National Digital Payment System, and that's the Instant Inclusive Payment System. Of course, that's how the journey started. But again, we didn't jump into technology immediately, because interoperability requires a framework. It requires a study. It requires a strong business case and a blueprint. So we started with a blueprint, the roadmap that we had to follow to have it implemented. We went through a scheme rule to have a governance around it. Once a scheme rule were established, developed, we had to discuss with financial institutions, because the buy-in of an instant payment system, the value proposal around it might be obvious for the government to drive the economy. It might be obvious maybe to the consumer, but again, it's not that obvious for financial institutions that are into business. They need to grow their balance sheet. So, but good enough, and that actually my belief, it has to be a government agenda, because we had really strong commitment to the government driving this, and get to understand that interoperability is aligned with the national strategy, with the financial strategy, to include everyone to play a role into the economy. And this was taken top to down, and really emphasized to all players to join the scheme. So once everyone really understood that value, then we started the implementation. But again, understanding is one thing, but implementation also requires another journey. So we phased our implementation into a phase approach. We started with the mobile money operators on a P2P. So in our market, we have two major operators, mobile money, MTN, and Airtel Commerce. And lucky, between the two, there were no interoperability. So no one would move money from MTN to Airtel, Airtel to. So that was inexistent. So it was an urgency. The funny story is one would have sent money from MTN mobile money in the region through mobile money, but your neighbor who is on the competitor line, you are not able to send money locally, yet you're sending cross-border. So that was how it started. Fast forward 2022, 1 year down the line, we integrated all the bank. And today, as we talk, all the banks are integrated. All the banks in Rwanda are integrated to the switch. All mobile money operators are integrated, and few MFIs are integrated. And the role it's playing is, one, we are driving financial inclusion in terms of reducing financial cost, financial services access. Second is our aim is really to achieve drive cashless economy, keep money into the ecosystem, and allow any citizen, wherever they are, to be able to transact digitally. And again, the instant payments has this agenda of driving digitizations. And the only way to achieve was to bring a centralized infrastructure that will address, one, the operational inefficiencies that financial institutions have been suffering with due to the bilateral integrations. Second is bilateral require many integrations. So one player integrating to over 10, actually mobile money operators, some of them are integrated to over 70 to 80 providers. So means before you settle, you're actually reconciling for 80. Means it's really heavy in terms of operations. So the value proposal around it really improve their operations and their integration. Instead of integrating with 80 people and above, you're only integrating with a single switch and achieve it. And from the consumer side, you have now multiple choice, because from where you sit, you don't need to withdraw money for you to give someone who is in an ecosystem that is isolated or not integrated. So integration has, the instant payment has really given this convenience of having everyone digitized and be able to send money across the ecosystem through the switch, and the product is called eCash. So today we are live with P2P, very soon going live before end of this year with P2B merchant interoperability. So Olivier, I think this is a quick contribution I can give for now. Happy to give more as we go.
Thank you so much. I think you gave the journey from the beginning up to how we are. Mr. Samba, can you give us the journey around the account-to-account interoperability? How far you are, challenges, how is the business model in Gambia?
Okay, thank you very much. With GamSwitch, we started account-to-account back in 2017. That's when we started account-to-account. But then it was only banks. But recently, and the main reason was, again, we didn't have any mobile wallet operators there. But in the last 2 years, it almost came in with a big bang. I think we have about 15 of them now in a country less than 3 million. So that shows how powerful they came, because they also saw value in it. And now they wanted to be integrated so that they can send not only to each other, but also to bank accounts. For that one now, currently, we are testing with them to make sure that they can achieve that. And with that, we are also lucky that when it comes to regulation, for example, whether they will join or not, we have been assisted very much by the central bank. Because being the regulator, what they did was back in 2011, they said that all banks must be interoperable. That helped us a lot. So we didn't have to struggle, and all the banks came. So with this, one also mobile wallet operators. The advice is again that all mobile wallets must be interoperable. That's a requirement, a licensing requirement. So that pulls them that if you want to license, you must be interoperable. And then for that reason also, so far again, we have seen the take-up is very, very promising. And we anticipate that there will be no one left behind. So, and the use cases, in fact, people are putting it into uses that we have not even anticipated at the time that we set out for this account-to-account transfer. For example, merchants now, you go down there, all they say, okay, just transfer the money to my account. Then you transfer, then you go on with your goods. You can even transfer while not there, and still now they will send you your goods. Another feature that also helped us was we introduced we call it pay code. I mean, the ability to withdraw money without your physical card being present. That also helped very much, because then the idea of sending money, because cost was an issue, but with GAM Switch now, we definitely bring the cost almost to 90% down from the traditional way of sending money around the country. With the GAM Switch now, that cost have come to almost 90% down. So that still got many people now to send money using, of course, that service, the pay code. You generate the code from your mobile wallet, and then you send it to anybody in the country. They just walk to the nearest ATM and withdraw the money. So that one also is really, really helpful in that, again, be it businesses, be it money lenders or money senders, they're all doing it at a very, very high rate now.
Yeah, that's a smart way of achieving or doing remittance on an ATM.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Gertrude, on a strategic level, how do you see the interoperability of account-to-account payment systems in 3 to 5 years to come? And how do you see the role of NetSwitch in that period?
Thanks a lot. So currently, in terms of interoperability of account-to-account transactions that we achieved in 2022, and in terms of interoperability of wallet-to-wallet that was achieved in 2018. And we did not stop at only wallet-to-wallet, but also account-to-wallet and wallet-to-account. Now, going forward, we needed this foundational infrastructure working with all those use cases because we had bigger plans. And one of those was to bring in government payments, especially the social protection programs, enabling for government to utilize the existing national switch infrastructure to be able to deliver social protection programs. And not only social protection programs, but also revenue collections, that is both tax and non-tax revenue for government. Because of those ambitions, we had to drive quite hard on this. National Switch, ideally in Malawi, it's owned by the members themselves, 100%. And it's the CEOs of the financial institutions, be it the mobile money operators or the commercial banks, they sit at the board of the National Switch. The chairman of the board is drawn from that pool of directors. And of course, we had issues in bringing all the players together to achieve higher inclusive interoperability in the market. But then it becomes easier for us when it comes to roll out all these initiatives, because before we actually go out there and start all these engagements, when we start from the board and we have that, we get that approval, and they are the ones that are supposed to support all these initiatives in their various institutions. When we bring them up, it becomes easier for us. But in addition to that, we also have got a huge support from the Reserve Bank of Malawi, and even from government. The legal and regulatory framework right now in Malawi is very conducive in terms of innovation on digital payments and interoperability. When we started in Malawi, we did not have, interoperability was not mandated. But because the switch is owned by the private sector, And for them, they wanted to drive it to make sure that, one, it is self-sustaining, and also it's delivering and it's enabling to achieve their interoperability needs that they had then. But in the later years, the Reserve Bank of Malawi, which is the central bank, came in and actually mandated interoperability. That is actually makes it easier for us. So for us, there are two main projects that we are looking at. One of them is the government participation on the national switch. And then the next is participation on cross-border remittances, the likes of COMESA. So Malawi falls into two common regional economic blocks. We have got the SADC on the other side, and COMESA on the other side. And you're aware that there are two initiatives that are running in parallel, but then yes, Malawi will have to integrate to both both initiatives in terms of remittances. And then at a continental level, we have IIPS as well. That is going to support e-trade in the continent. And that is something that we are also engaging with the various stakeholders for us also to be integrated to IIPS as well. So what we're saying is the national switch is going to play the role of a clearing agent for all these transactions in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's quite impressive. Jean-Jacques, from a strategic perspective, how do you see the IIPS interoperability between account-to-account systems so far developing in Rwanda over 3 to 5 years? What role do you envision us, which we have in strengthening the payment infrastructure and supporting the country's economic ambitions?
Thank you, Olivier. One, if I take it from a perspective of a problem statement, Rwanda has achieved 96% financial inclusion, but most of the citizens are still accessing financial services through informal financial services. Today, we still heavily depend on physical cash. When you look at the FinScope report, I think over 80% of purchase of food that are happening in the country are still done with cash, physical cash. So what it means, the government is still printing a lot of physical cash, which is very expensive. So 2024, the Financial Sector Development Program was launched, and the aim is to achieve by 2050 universal financial services access. And the instant inclusive financial instant payment system will be a cornerstone to achieve this, because one, if we've achieved digitizations, second, we have a population that is cost sensitive. If with the journey in which we are today, we can see already an appetite to use financial services. If all the use cases are rolled out and we are able to convert people from physical cash to digital transactions, if we are able to achieve giving everyone digital access to their bank account, because having a bank account is one thing, but having a digital access to your bank account is also something else. Today, we are only 22% banked populations, and the interoperability will create arrays of interconnecting formal and informal financial sector through the switch. And again, through the partnership that we have with the Mojaloop, having an open source, open loop platforms is also critical into this, because with this, what we are achieving is we are reducing the operational cost of implementing an infrastructure. So all the players from small to large financial institutions are able to connect to the entire financial services ecosystem through a single integrations and expose their customers the opportunity to transact from and to anyone. So from a strategic standpoint, the instant inclusive payment system is really core to the country, to the government, and that's why we see very strong commitment of our government, of central bank, and getting a lot of support through all these partnership that we are having. So, and we are already seeing the fruit of having the instant payment running, and we see low income population transacting through the switch. So with the journey that we are in, from now 3 years, I think we will see a better uptake. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Mr. Samba, looking ahead in 3 to 5 years, how do you foresee the evolution of IPS and in your market? What strategic role do you anticipate GAM Switch will play in enhancing the country's payment infrastructure and contributing to the economic development of Gambia?
Okay, thank you very much. I think going forward for GAM Switch, I think we have already begun the journey to the future. In that, as I said, we have already begun the upgrade of the national switch, so that because we were wanting in connecting the mobile wallets, but not only the mobile wallet, but the microfinances. We have a very good number of microfinances in the country and other cooperatives. I think they call it SACCOs in other parts of Africa. We have a lot of them, and all this going forward, we want them to be connected. As I said, the upgrade is almost done. We are now testing with the mobile wallet, trying to make sure that everyone is connected to the switch, so that an complete interoperability will be achieved in that way. In terms of financial inclusion, I think 2 years ago, the national government, together with the central bank, committed themselves to at least 75% financial inclusion rate in the Gambia in the next 3 years. For that one, we are marching, and we have good progress and good indication that we will achieve that target come 2028. We are marching forward on that role. And the inclusion is driven by different motives from the government side. One is to be able to make sure that everybody can transact digitally and receive remittances, Gambia being predominantly a remittance country. That one will be very, very important, that people in Gambian in the diaspora can send to their relatives, not through a microfinance, but directly to their wallets or to their bank accounts. And intercontinentally, we are going to connect to PAPs. That journey have already begun, I can see. And with cross-border, we are seeing, of course, there is some informal way of using GAM Switch now on the cross-border. But that one, again, the ability is there. It's just regulation from the regulator. Once we receive the go-ahead, I think that one also we can fulfill that role. The other one is government revenue collection. We are lucky that in the Gambia, the government itself is very, very committed, to the extent of establishing a ministry called Digital Ministry, with the view of helping to digitalize the whole economy of the Gambia. So government revenue collection will be one of it. I think in the panel that passed, I had somebody saying it will reduce corruption. Not only reducing corruption, but I think now the collection of it is very inefficient and very costly. So if we can digitalize it, we have a very good chance that we will collect more, and the government will be able to have the funds much faster than through the conventional way of collecting it now. The other one is when all this thing is done, connecting to the switch, as I said, we are lucky that when it comes to the connection, so far we have not received any objection from the people that we are targeting. That means the DFSP, or we have not got any objection that them connecting to the switch. I think for two reasons. One, this is that's the trend. I think everybody can see that you either join or you are left behind. And then all of them wanting to be relevant to their customers wouldn't want to do that. But again, regulation, I think, also help. For us, so far, the regulator have not got the chance to enforce it because there is no need to. Everybody is just subscribed to it. So I think those are very important going forward.
Thank you so much. I think from three of you, I'm seeing that cross-border is the way to go, facilitating remittances and also reducing the cost. It's a key, it's appearing from three of you. Now, Gertrude, considering the challenge we've identified here and there, what solution or strategies do you have in place to achieve not switch visions in those 3 to 5 years?
Thanks a lot. When we started implementing the national switch, we really had big challenges. And the main one was alignment with our key stakeholders, the commercial banks especially, and even for them to really get to a point where they approve non-banks from participating on the national switch was a challenge. But today, as I'm speaking, there is alignment. And most of the issues that we get right now, it's not necessarily in terms of how do we get support and all that, but there are several factors that need to work together for us if we are going to accrue the benefits that we are seeking in as far as national switches are concerned. And more often we focus on the supplier side, and sometimes we leave the demand side outside. And currently, in as much as we're focusing on the digital platforms that are going to drive all the initiatives that we're talking about, they are initiatives working with different stakeholders right now on the part of the regulators that regulate telecommunications. They are focused on digital literacy to make sure that the consumers or the citizens of the country are equipped with the right skills for the digital economy that we are driving at. And in addition to that, the Reserve Bank of Malawi, which is the central bank of Malawi, is also focused on financial literacy to the point where they have gone a step ahead to introduce it in the education system from high school or secondary school education. They have introduced it in the curriculum. So we're working together with all these stakeholders. Also, bringing in different, expanding the ecosystem by bringing in new participants. We're also working with the likes of insurance companies to come on board. Malawi, in terms of insurance penetration, is still at 5%. And when it comes to digital payments and all that, we've been working with the kind of payment service providers, the commercial banks, the mobile money operators, microfinancing institutions, savings and credit cooperatives and whatnot. But what we have not done is to bring the insurance companies on board. And we do have the majority of the population that is secluded from accessing insurance products. So we're implementing, as I pointed out, what we're calling a national e-payment gateway that is going to integrate government. But what it is going to do as well is to bring the other insurance companies and other payment service providers that have been left out. So we're also working with issues to do with tackling of fraud that is associated with digital payments and so forth. So both the central bank as well as the telecommunications regulator, MACRA, we're working together with them and find ways on how we can share not only share information, but how we can tackle all these issues of cybersecurity as well as fraud at a national level, working collaboratively together, because we know that these have potential to disrupt adoption and uptake of digital payments in the country. So there is quite a lot of work that we are doing in addition to putting in place the digital rails and highways that facilitate digital payments in the country. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Samba, some of the challenges Switch have are transaction failures, relationship with system vendors, and some of them Gertrude also said them. Now, what solutions or approaches are you implementing to reach your strategic goals for IIPS interoperability, given those challenges?
All right, thank you very much. I think for us, when it comes to challenges, first, just as you said, transaction failures. We realized that, as I said, the switch was established in 2011. And that's why I said post-COVID, the volume did not come down. In fact, if anything, I can say it increased to the extent that the switch that we had really could not handle the demand. That's what prompted us, most of all, to seek a complete overhaul of the switch to make sure that the one that we are going to bring now will be able to handle all or even forecasted transaction levels. I think that one is very important because we see that in the Gambia, though the population is small, but the volume of transactions is really growing year on year. The other one is capacity that we felt was capacity. I told you in 2011, when central bank wanted to have a national switch, almost there was nobody in the country who knew how to establish one, let alone how to run one. But fast forward, I think the human capacity to evolve is very impressive. And today I can say that GAM switch is 100% operated by Gambians with little or no help from outside the country. So, and we are evolving every day, trying to bring in new solutions. Of course, with the help of Mojaloop, we want to expand that. So that one also is coming up. So the other one is security. I think when you talk about digital transaction, what comes to mind is, of course, security. It's very important that at this stage, we do not disappoint our customers, because once you have a major security lapses, that one could be very, very devastating. Because so far, I think, judging by what the panel before me were saying, the trust for digital payment is not only in the Gambia, really is not that the transactions are high, but people are doing it because there's no other way. But it is coming now that we have to invest very, very well in security to make sure that people trust that the digital transactions is safe enough, of course, with a little bit of cost on here and there.
Thank you so much. I think we need to conclude. There's a screen there telling us time's up, but I need to give a concluding remark. I'll start by Jean-Jacques. In 1 minute, can you offer your closing remark on where a switch role in Rwanda's financial sector and its outlook, and key message you would like to leave the audience about our switch commitment to advancing payment interoperability and supporting economic growth?
Thank you, Olivier. I think our role is really obvious and now understood by the stakeholders participating into the scheme. Our switch now, our role is really to drive digitizations, offering also new players to get incorporated, mostly fintechs that have been facing really big challenges to be part of the ecosystem. So the instant payment system gives them opportunity to play a role. And our journey now is now into educating, driving awareness, because putting the system in place is one thing, but it has to be used. And for that to be used, it requires aggressive awareness, educations of the consumers to understand it. But again, putting in place strong and robust security measures, fraud monitoring tools, so that the platform is not used to defraud consumers and participant. But again, together, as we gather here, all the switches, I think, as we all ride on the open loop Mojaloop platforms, once each country has achieved the domestic interoperability, scaling it to the cross-border would be an easy conversation, because we are all riding into the same platforms. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Samba, what are the most important point you want the audience to take away regarding GAMSwitch efforts in developing a robust and inclusive payment systems?
Okay.
As a digital payment infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I think, as I said, with GAMSwitch, I think it all starts from the government itself, because they saw how GAMSwitch could be strategic in going forward in the economy as a whole. And that's why, number one, they make sure that they persuade the private sector to sell out, so that they can now use it to drive the economy forward. But in terms of inclusivity, they also say that, or set us a target, that they want GAMSwitch also to lead on the financial inclusion strategy of the country. And I think with all this, GAMSwitch is pretty much set to make sure that that is achieved. And of course, with the collaboration now, or possible collaboration with Mojaloop, we think that that is achievable in a very, very short period of time.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Gertrude, what your key points you want the audience to stay with regarding NatSwitch, a strategic move about connecting to regional bodies, also fostering the Malawian payment infrastructure?
Thanks a lot. So for National Switch, the lessons learned, as well as from our experiences, I think the most critical element is stakeholder alignment, engagements, and so forth from the word go. And for us, definitely Mojaloop, the level 1 project, really helped us in terms of the guidelines that they provide in implementing as well as managing national switches. That has really been a fundamental point that has helped us to scale as well. And one other area that I'd want to point out is the need for public awareness, as well as making sure that we're putting in place a robust governance structures for the national switches to work as well, and for adoption, not only for the citizens, the consumers, but also for those that are supposed to participate on the national switch, because you're building trust on that. And then the final one, not really least, but then the fact that it is very critical to continue building up in terms of products, and as well as use cases that align to the country and to the consumers themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Round of applause for our panelists, please. Thank you. It was an honor working with you on this. We are still together. Please.